The night of July 23, 2010, was dark and gloomy in the quiet town of Independence, Louisiana, when tragedy struck. 22-year-old Jamin Robinson was discovered lying unconscious on the side of the road. Despite the frantic efforts of medical personnel, he passed away 2 days later. For years, detectives were left with no leads or suspects, leaving the community in a state of fear and uncertainty. But just when all hope seemed lost, a mysterious witness suddenly came forward with information that changed everything. What did this witness know, and how did it change the course of the investigation? Hi, and welcome back to Mysterious Hook, friends. Today, we are looking at a 13-year-old case that was solved in 2023. But first, if you still haven't subscribed to the channel, please consider hitting the subscribe button and the bell icon down below. Now, without any further ado, let's dive right into this mystery. Independence, a small town in Tangipahoa Parish, Louisiana, is located about an hour north of New Orleans and is home to a variety of historic landmarks. With a population of just over 1,600 people, it is a tight-knit community that values its rich history and southern hospitality. The town is known for its annual Sicilian Festival, which celebrates the Sicilian heritage of many of its residents. It is also a popular destination for tourists looking to experience Louisiana's unique culture and history. It is here in this small and quiet town where our story begins. Jamin was born on March 31, 1989 in Independence, Louisiana. Although there is very little known about his early life, and details such as the names of his parents or the schools he attended remain a mystery, one thing that is known for certain about Jamin's childhood is that he had a sister named Chastity Jackson. Despite the lack of information about their early years, it was clear that the two of them shared a special bond that could not be broken. Growing up in Independence, Louisiana, the siblings relied on each other for comfort, support, and love, and as they grew older, their relationship only grew stronger. People who knew Jamin describe him as a sweet young man who was always beaming with joy and spreading kindness wherever he went. Everyone who crossed his path was struck by his infectious smile and warm heart. His gentle personality and quiet disposition made him a beloved figure among his family and friends. He also had a deep love for his family, whom he held close to his heart. But there was more to Jamin than just his kind-hearted nature. He was a gifted artist who had a talent for drawing. His sketches were a reflection of his boundless imagination and his ability to capture the essence of the world around him. Jamin was also a devoted member of his church community, regularly volunteering his time and resources to help those in need. Apart from this, Jamin also had a close friend by the name of Montre Page. Montre lived in the same neighborhood and attended the same school as Jamin. He was also well known by Jamin's family. Despite Jamin being 4 years older, the two got along quite well. There was no doubt that Jamin's days were filled with laughter, love, and endless possibilities. He had his whole life ahead of him, with plans and dreams that seemed like they would soon be within reach. But when they least expected it, things took a turn for the worse. July 23, 2010 started out like any other day for Jamin. He got out of bed and started his morning routine, completely oblivious to the fate that awaited him. As he went about his usual business, running errands and taking care of responsibilities, little did he know that he was completing a sequence of events that would ultimately lead to his untimely death. Perhaps if he had known what was going to happen, he would have chosen to remain indoors throughout the day rather than venture outside. Some minutes before 11 p.m. on that fateful day, an emergency call came to the Independence Police Department. The caller, who seemed to be in a state of panic, reported that someone was lying unconscious on Kemp Street near a roadside ditch. It was unclear how long the person had been lying there, but the caller urged the police to hurry. The police officers on duty immediately sprang into action and rushed to the scene as fast as they could. When the police arrived at the scene, they were greeted with a chilling sight. A young man, barely clinging to life, lay motionless near a roadside ditch. Despite the absence of any visible physical injury or blood on his body, it was clear that he was in a terrible state. The officers' minds raced as they tried to figure out what could have happened to him. They began to suspect that the young man had been a victim of a hit-and-run driver, as there were no other signs of foul play in the area. Officers knew that time was of the essence and they had to act quickly to save his life. With the help of paramedics, they carefully loaded the young man into a waiting ambulance, hoping that he would make it to the hospital in time. With sirens blaring, they rushed to the Lally-Kemp Regional Medical Center. Upon arrival at the hospital, the doctors quickly stabilized the young man and assessed his condition. The news was not good. He had suffered from multiple head injuries and his life hung by a thread. Knowing the gravity of the young man's injuries, the doctors transferred him to St. Tammany Medical Center, one of the best hospitals in the state. As the doctors and nurses worked tirelessly to keep the young man alive, more information about him began to surface. Shockingly, it turned out to be none other than Jamin. His family were soon contacted and they rushed to his side at the hospital. With hearts heavy with fear and anguish, they prayed and hoped for a miracle, but as the hours ticked by, their worst fears were confirmed. Jamin's condition was critical, and the doctors soon prepared him for surgery. The surgery was successful, but Jamin's recovery was slow and uncertain. The medical team decided to transfer him to the New Orleans University Hospital, where he could receive the best possible care. Despite the doctor's best efforts, Jamin's condition continued to deteriorate, and his family's hope began to fade. They clung to every shred of optimism, but deep down, they knew that they were facing the unthinkable. On July 25, 2010, just 2 days after his fight began, Jamin passed away. His family was devastated. They couldn't believe that he had been taken away from them so suddenly and in such a tragic way. The following day, after Jamin's death, the Tangipahoa Parish Coroner's Office scheduled an autopsy to determine the cause of his fatal injuries. The examiner's findings revealed that Jamin's death resulted from internal, closed head injuries. The injuries also suggested that the vehicle that possibly hit him was slow-moving, which only added to the mystery of what happened that fateful night. As the news of Jamin's tragic death spread, a cloud of sadness and confusion descended upon the quiet town of Independence. Detectives of the Independence Police Department wasted no time in launching a full-scale investigation into the incident. They were determined to unravel the mystery behind Jamin's untimely demise. They began to meticulously piece together all the events of that fateful night, hoping to find the answers. The detectives faced a daunting task and they were not sure where to start. Who was the reckless driver that had possibly struck Jamin and left him for dead on the side of the road? And if it wasn't a hit-and-run incident, what exactly had happened to Jamin on that night? These and many more questions plagued the detectives. As the investigation into Jamin's death continued, detectives made a crucial discovery. The person who found Jamin lying on the roadside was none other than his friend and neighbor Montre. With this revelation, the police immediately turned to Montre for answers, hoping that his account of events could provide valuable insight into what really happened on that night. However, even after several rounds of questioning, the police were still no closer to solving the case. The mystery surrounding Jamin's death only deepened, leaving detectives more frustrated. Jamin was soon laid to rest. The funeral was attended by many who had known him and loved him. After the funeral, the investigation into Jamin's death continued with renewed vigor. Detectives interviewed numerous individuals, but nothing came of it. The authorities even asked the public for help, urging anyone with information to come forward. The passing of time did not ease the pain felt by Jamin's loved ones. Each anniversary of his death brought renewed heartache, and the desire for justice remained strong. Despite the trail going cold, the authorities never gave up hope of solving the case. Unfortunately, the investigation yielded no concrete leads, and the case eventually went cold. Around 2017, the case was reopened. However, the Independence Police Department once again found themselves at a dead end regarding Jamin's case. With limited resources and no leads, they knew they needed to help find a breakthrough. Desperate, they turned to the Tangipahoa Parish Sheriff's Office for assistance. The Sheriff's Office then stepped in, bringing their expertise to the table in a bid to unravel the mystery behind Jamin's tragic death. Around this time, Detective Mike Sticker took charge of the case and began working tirelessly alongside Independence Police Chief Frank Edwards. The two men and several other detectives spent countless hours poring over the facts, determined to find any new leads that could potentially bring justice for Jamin. They believed that the community held the key to solving the case, and so they once again turned to the public for help. Police Chief Frank, in particular, remained hopeful that media coverage of the case would jog someone's memory or conscience and encourage them to come forward. 6 long years later, in January 2023, the breakthrough in Jamin's case finally came when a mysterious witness, whose identity was kept confidential, stepped forward. The witness had been carrying a heavy burden of guilt and finally felt compelled to come clean. His story was nothing short of jaw-dropping and took the investigation in a completely different direction. According to the witness, Jamin's death had not been caused by a hit-and-run driver as previously thought, but by someone close to him. The individual told police that the person responsible for Jamin's death was his friend Montre. While the exact details of the witness's account are still undisclosed by detectives, the gravity of Montre's actions were finally revealed. Following this, detectives began to look for him. His whereabouts were finally traced to Chambers County, Texas, and on February 10, 2023, officers finally arrested him. Even though he had been 17 when Jamin died, authorities decided to charge him as an adult. Up until 3 years ago, once you reached the age of 17, you were considered an adult offender in the state of Louisiana, said Tangipahoa Parish Sheriff Jimmy Travis. Montre was charged with second-degree murder, multiple failure to appear counts, and 1 charge of jumping bail. As it turns out, Montre's legal troubles seem to have started long before he became a suspect in Jamin's murder. He had been previously arrested and had pleaded guilty to multiple drug charges. This was back on November 16, 2021. At the time, the court had ordered him to wear an ankle monitor and return for sentencing 3 days later on November 19th. However, instead of complying with the court order, Montre decided to flee to Chambers County, Texas, and also removed his ankle monitor illegally in the process. News of Montre's arrest for the murder sent shockwaves through the community, especially to Jamin's grieving family. At first, they could hardly believe it when they heard that their son's own friend was responsible for his tragic death. But as the reality set in, a sense of relief washed over them. The rest of the community also struggled to come to terms with the truth behind the case. It was a betrayal that cut deep, and people wondered how something so senseless could happen between 2 friends. Many were left with lingering questions and a sense of unease, but above all, there was a collective hope that this would bring closure for everyone involved. On February 27, 2023, Montre pleaded guilty to several charges in the drug-related case and was sentenced to 90 years in prison. At the moment, he is also awaiting trial for the murder of Jamin. After a long investigation, the truth behind Jamin's death finally came to light. Thanks to the perseverance of law enforcement and the bravery of a witness who came forward, justice was served. While nothing can bring back Jamin, his family and the community can finally have closure and begin to heal. But what do you think would have happened if the witness had not come forward with the information that Jamin was murdered by his friend Montre, instead of being a victim of a hit-and-run? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section. Do not forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe.